Speaking of morning.
And back. Okay, yeah, there we are. Just at the right time.
We got caught.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing live show number 147. And with us today is always the most intelligent, brainiest, wittiest, smartest, kindest, nicest person in the entire world, Robert Coleman.
We were both sitting there going, which one? we were both raising our hands going, we know.
We know. As also is Mr. Edward St. Ange from Flip2. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, as always.
I'm surprised you can still get me to do this show, Lauren. I mean, Fridays kind of feel like a boat day.
Oh, dude, you have no idea how much I want to be. I'm sitting there going, well, I also add to that I got my motorcycle back. I was remiss in keeping good condition of the bike, and I had a fuel line issue problem, so I finally brought it into the shop. Actually, I had to have it brought on a trailer to the shop, and they had it for over a week. In the meanwhile, I said, man, I got to get the grips replaced. I got to get it cleaned up, blah, 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 and have them tuned up and everything else. And I got the bike back yesterday. Of course, it was raining, but I didn't care. I still drove it home in the rain. But now I got the bike, too. So I'm like, oh, got to go on the bike. So, yeah, between boat and bike, I'm like, I don't want to work. What's that song? I don't want to work anymore. Yeah, so, yeah, I got a lot of distractions thinking that I want to go do something. Boat definitely.
I figured.
Yeah, good stuff. Mr. Robert, you gave us some cool topics, dude. I actually love that.
I've got a question. Are we live on Facebook Live? Just so we can cover some administrative and technical issues.
No, I was in the midst of that.
Yeah, why don't we wait until we're actually live everywhere, Lauren? I mean,
see, I don't know which way to go. You guys get upset with me when I over-broadcast?
We never get upset with you.
Now, although it is National Say Something Nice Day, I don't see that happening on this show.
This show. Hey, Robert, did you see what I sent back to Donna as to our manifesto?
I did not. Was that after I sent my little reply, or?
Yes, it was after you sent your little reply.
I have not read that. I was involved with multiple conversations with clients this morning, so I've just
really.
Yeah. Well, when they're in Europe, you gotta be awake when they are, sort of thing.
Well, actually, I'll take the EU over China any day.
Which sucks because I have clients in Asia too, and I've got to be awake when they are.
So you never get to see the tough one.
Sleep, you can accomplish so much more if you cut out eating, sleeping, bathing. I mean, there's just so exercising, all that stuff, any form of entertainment. Boy, your productivity skyrockets.
Okay. I'm just typing. Go ahead, gentlemen. Talk amongst yourself while I play tech in the back.
So, Robert, I had to laugh at one of the topics that you chose today because I went and read it, and I was like, there's no way anyone in our audience will appreciate anything about this topic whatsoever, which was the reconciling GraphQL and Thrift.
Okay, well, that was in a particular thing, so maybe but the topic was actually it was recommended by Holly, who I'm surprised has not chosen to join us this morning. She thought that we should talk about Airbnb, and I could not agree more, because they are doing some. I think my hypothesis is this is a very different kind of company than most any other things that people have experienced before. Even comparing to Uber and a lot of other folks that it kind of gets lumped in with.
They're a different type of company for a different reason that Uber was a different type of company. So Airbnb is very open, very community oriented. I think of all the companies who kind of came to fruition through the whole social sharing movement, I think they're the ones who are truest to that idea. Whereas Uber is the complete opposite. They liked the movement because it allowed them to have a reason to break laws and generally just be jerks to everyone and have it hidden under this whole, hey, look, we're part of that social sharing movement.
Well, we're breaking rules. That's what we're doing. We're disruptive.
Right. They just did it. Yeah. They did it with no intention of it ever being socially sharing or or share economy. It was all, oh, look.
There
we
was
can
no
get
sharing. There was a
rich.
lot of keeping. A lot of
We can,
keeping.
yeah, exactly. We can get super rich by being evil and hide it under this whole idea of sharing.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so yes, Airbnb is different. But I think they're not all that different than what you would expect from a company who truly believed in the sharing economy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, I would say that to certainly a good portion of it. I think what the way that they are behaving in terms of the amount of investment that they received from certainly VCs and some very, very top line people, they have resisted all these temptations to really go big, make a ton of money, and they're making sure all their foundational pillars are really well established. Where I think a lot of folks would have been like, and certainly a lot of the venture capitalists are like, let's cash in, get some return to our investors, and move on to the next.
I think they now have a lot of successful companies to point at. That when you are smart and you have the right team and you have the right opportunity, it's worth doing the hard work. And I think the easiest one to point at for that is Amazon.
Right.
Jeff Bezos has done an amazing job at not allowing the money that made it possible, not allowing it to ruin what the business's potential is.
Right. Well, and he did. He trained Wall Street to just chill. We're doing something here that's is going to be. If you're in it for the quick return and a big dividend, we are the wrong guys to invest in. Go put your money somewhere else.
Right. To a lesser standpoint, I think Expedia has done that as well. So, if you're looking at Airbnb pointing to investors who are probably getting antsy, they can point to, when Expedia basically said, hey, we're going to spend a ton of money rebuilding the entire architecture, deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have Jeff Bezos and what he did with Amazon. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that's what the stakeholders inside of Airbnb are using as the case studies to calm down the venture capital.
And Expedia was basically, besieged by Wall Street, right? Their stock price was pummeled, and it was basically Barry Diller who had invested in them originally, who's still their chairman and has a big stake in it, who basically said, if it's okay with me, and everybody else kind of had to be okay with it, but the public markets, all the institutional guys, just absolutely destroyed them in the process. But they've hung in there, and they've got a pretty, amazing platform. Maybe not quite as amazing as they have amazing platform, probably better platform than Booking and Priceline and all that stuff. But they also blew it in Europe at the same time. They turned down acquiring Booking, right? They could have gotten it or because they turned it down, Priceline got it, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, but again, it's this whole idea of we can name all the reasons they can't go IPO, but the biggest problem on why they can't go IPO is the problem of limit in inventory and limit. Like, you can find Airbnb's limits to their current business units that produce revenue. And the best IPOs are the ones where you cannot easily find the limit of those.
The network effect is so strong. The more users they get, the better data they get. And it makes everything so much better.
The problem Airbnb still has is that no matter how big of a network they get, they have very restricted inventory. Right.
Yeah. Well, and just through these financials, through the link that I posted here, they had a good year in 2017. They had 2.7 billion in revenue and profited. They had 93 million bucks in profit. So they've now been profitable for 2 years. They've got 4.
I thought that was impossible. I thought Uber said you could not make money without burning like.
I don't know. Uber's $4.5 billion loss last year. Yeah, I don't know. I think Dara's working on that. And we'll see. Actually, very interesting on Uber. With now they've got Dara as like the face of the. He's now the. Who was the guy? Dave. Whatever with with Wendy's,
Yeah.
and then the face of the Men's Warehouse and all.
Yeah,
this. So,
Well, because
Hair
they,
Club for
because
Men.
they have such a problem with the way they got to where they are today. I mean, those
Right.
skeletons that they've left are just, they're not even in the closet. They just have skeletons everywhere of the garbage they pulled to get to the size they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I'd much rather be an Airbnb investor right now than an Uber investor. Because if you were an early Uber investor, you have to be sitting there going, crap. Are we ever going to get out of this investment?
they've dug a hole, and again they've
dug
made
a hole, and they're in the hole, but there's a skyscraper of bodies on top of them.
Yeah, well, and you're starting to get these new legal interpretations of what is a contractor and things like that. Are they employees? And
Yep.
that's going to be, especially for Uber, much less with Airbnb, because Airbnb can kind of go, hey, these are people's house. They don't
They're
work for it.
proprietary.
They're deciding, right? They're individual owners where.
Yep.
There's so much logistical assistance, and they can say, hey, nobody forces, and Uber is quite remarkable in the fact that they don't have scheduling of their
Right.
resources, right? It's
Right.
just market forces drive this, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, that is revolutionary.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're saying how much you charge, who you pick up when, where you take, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that's a lot of control. That's looking very, very close to having these guys be employees, because you could structure as employees the same way and operate. Nothing would change, right? I think that's
Right.
that's the basic problem.
Do you think that anything can harpoon the IPO potential value? Like if Airbnb loses a city, a predominant city, like how Uber, when no one had that issue with London, is something like that possible for Airbnb, that just prior to an IPO, some dramatic change in something policy comes up and all of a sudden changes? Do you think any of that, or is it pretty much just on the path that it's on? Nothing's really
The
gonna shake it?
only cities Airbnb is really at risk of losing are the ones who have out of control living expenses.
Which is a problem. Airbnb is incredibly hostile to affordable living. Well, it's incredibly hostile to having affordable basically housing, but
Right.
at the same time, there's certainly some research that's coming out saying Airbnb is allowing people to stay in their housing in these markets because they're
Airbnb-
supplementing their income. Otherwise, they couldn't afford to
Airbnb
be.
is
So it's a little chicken and egg, right?
Right. Well, it's hostile to probably the lowest of income category inside of a city. It's
Right.
actually incredibly helpful keeping the middle income afloat, and
Yeah.
so that's the thing they have that Uber doesn't. Right. I mean,
Well, I just remember being in Hawaii, and I had never heard of an active, radio station commercial stuff with Airbnb involved before, where they were actively trying to limit Airbnb's capabilities because they were killing to Robert's point, the affordable housing, because people didn't have to rent the annual leases out, but they could make a great amount of money via Airbnb, and now all of a sudden there's affordable housing issues. But
Yep.
yeah,
So in cities that are geographically constrained, in cities
San
where
Francisco, Seattle, Manhattan.
right,
Yeah.
those are
Yeah.
problem markets that you may put a little bit of dent into Airbnb's IPO, but
Yes.
not to the same level that losing London does to Uber.
right.
Yeah.
Speaking of London,
Well-
our English contingency is here. Hello. Hello.
Cheerio.
Oh, blimey, governor. I have a lot of people ask me, whereabouts in London are you from? That's a legitimate question. People
You tell
ask.
them that that's racist.
I get offended. I pretend that I'm offended, but I don't
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Well, it's just like whenever I say I'm from Florida. Oh, my friend's in Miami. How close are you to that? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm pretty close.
We're a really big state.
Well,
Lauren
that's so
and
true.
Lauren and I
Not
are a
just
good
tell-
4-hour drive apart from each other, and
That's
neither of us. And I'm in the middle. So
Well,
yeah, it's always strange.
The other
Tell
question
you
I used to
what,
get when I first moved was, do you know Prince William? because I moved over in
Why would
2001
you?
before he was attached, and then people started asking me, do I know Prince Harry? And then one day, this woman called Meghan Markle asked me. I said, yeah, and I gave her his
Hey.
phone number. And
Your phone number.
the rest
Said,
is
hey,
history.
Right.
Hey, by the way, what happened to your invitation in the mail? You said you never got it in the mail. Did they finally just FedEx it over or something? Or
Well,
what?
Finally got it, right?
They did the background check and heard that I was hanging out with you guys every week. And it's like,
I
there's no way
knew we
we're allowing
ruined
you.
something for you. That's it.
Yeah.
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 Your
I should
social
send it-
graph does not pass muster.
It does
Yeah.
not.
Oh well. Anyway, so Mr. Stewart, thank you so much for joining us as well today. We were banging around Airbnb for a little bit, or at least Robert and,
Oh,
and
and
Edward.
there's more to bang around on there. There's lots to bang around on Airbnb. So, just a couple of other things to add. So, they could have merged with Truja. I think that's how you pronounce it in Chinese, which is basically Airbnb, and they didn't do it. And these guys still want to merge with Airbnb and say, "Hey, look, we'll do this," which is basically what what Uber did with Didi in the ride sharing space, but Airbnb didn't do that. Would seem like a really logical move that would have been pushed heavily by their investors. They've gone out and what Holly actually originally sent to me was, they're launching their tourism program, all their experiences, and that's really creating a lot of. And I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, Lauren, you and the echo, my friend.
Messing with stuff. I'm messing with stuff.
Are you asking us to stop so that way?
No. I'm messing with stuff.
The echo stops.
Holly went over and pointed out there was an echo on Facebook, and I'm trying to source out where that echo is pulling from. So
it's you.
It's
One
me.
of the
Definitely you.
One of the two dozen streams is
Notice how you never hear echoes from our side because we're all wearing headsets.
Yeah.
Hey, I got my little earbuds in today and my microphone, but my problem is like the lights are dimming in Southwest Florida as I'm pumping out this internet feed. Yeah, working on it.
Yeah,
working on it.
Lauren's happy that all the Bitcoin mining is taking the focus off of his electricity consumption running this podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, interesting thing is now Airbnb has 180 destinations that have their experiences programs with, basically. I think in Utah they had just opened the last month. They already had 50 options, sort of thing. So that whole experience
This is a huge problem for hotels. This is how Airbnb is skipping past Expedia and Booking.com on the OTA model. Is they're doing a far better job mapping the local interests and community, and really making it an engaging user experience. And listen, Expedia and Booking.com will catch up to this, but this is a problem for hotels. It's soon going to impact them at a level, and they won't see it coming because they're all going to say, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. People still, they're going to look at me. And yeah, but if you're not telling them why,
Right.
stay with you, which by the way, why stay with you is not primarily your beds. It's not primarily your porta-caches.
Shelter is not the sell.
Right. Yeah. If you're only selling on human necessity, you have a problem. And Airbnb is creating that problem. They're training consumers that there is a better experience, and it's a minor inconvenience for Expedia and Booking.com. It's going to be a major inconvenience for hotels.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and even TripAdvisor, who owns Viator, too. They've kind of skipped past them. Yes, Viator is doing a lot, and certainly that's pushing up TripAdvisor's share price, and they're doing a lot. But Airbnb is integrating it with the hotel experience. It's not this standalone, just go buy this over here from us, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like a lot of things we talk about. I think it's going to impact the bad players more than it is the good ones, right?
Because of course. There are hotels that do a great job.
Right. If a hotel does a consistently excellent job at customer service, and we all know, looking at reviews, that most positive reviews are going to reference the staff, right? So if you're training your staff properly, they're treating the guests appropriately, the rooms are always clean, you have great amenities, you're offering them concierge services and information about the area, the hotels are guaranteed to win if they do all that really well. But the ones that are lazy and don't have the consistency in the experience, they're going to get really hurt by Airbnb. But Airbnb is never going to be able to compete truly because it can't guarantee a consistent experience because it's reliant on these individual hosts.
Right, but it doesn't stop them from creating this massive problem.
It doesn't.
And this is a
Right.
massive, far-reaching problem. And really the ones I look at who this is the biggest problem for is Marriott, it's Hilton, it's Hyatt. It's those who give a very small footprint to their hotels inside of a city and don't really sell the city.
Yep.
Right.
And so they're too far down the decision path right now. Like basically, if you go to a Hilton site, if you go to a Marriott site, if you go to a Hyatt site, this is a site that's serving people who've already decided to go to the city. And
Yeah.
Airbnb is crawling up
Yep.
the marketing funnel, saying no. You need to be selling the city right alongside the neighborhood, right alongside the hotel, and consumers are going to say yes, that's correct, and that creates a huge problem for the brands because listen, even a hotel, Stuart can go to a hotel and fix that problem for them. It's a money problem, right? For the brands, it's an architecture problem.
Yep.
It's that monolithic architecture. IHG, I mean, they're all going to have this monolithic architecture problem where all of a sudden Marriott, because of the size they are, they're basically going to have to become the internet to compete because they are going to have to build out all this local stuff in such a scale that
which is why I feel like Hilton's making a dramatic error in their forcing folks to take down their vanity websites right now. You know, we were working with a Hampton Inn in a big destination that we managed a vanity site for them, and Hilton came along and said, "We're going to ding you on the next report. We're going to penalize you 600 points if you don't take down this vanity website." So they had no choice at that point, right? So we took down the website. They're down 25% in direct bookings this year.
Absolutely.
And when we look at last year's data about where the traffic was coming from, Ed's exactly right. It was folks on the long tail searching for hotels near this amenity, hotels,
Absolutely.
Stuff that
local relevance. Gee, you'd think you might
it was
want
stuff that the corporate Hilton, or in this case, a Hampton site, does not provide. It doesn't have the opportunity to provide that content. So,
which I mean, the only thing I'd say, and the only suggestion I'd have is if I was a Hilton franchise property, I'd be looking at what's a vanity site.
Right.
I mean, like if I was them, I'd be investing in building a neighborhood site that sold the neighborhood, happened to have their hotel as the prominent piece of that,
right.
But it's not the hotel's website.
Yeah, and we're seeing folks beginning to get around it, and we're working with a few that are doing that. So if you're like in a school, you're close to a big school, create a vanity site about parents that are traveling to this school. It happens to feature the two Hilton properties.
Which actually, and here's the crazy thing about that is what Hilton just accomplished is lessening their presence on these sites. Like,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, as a hotel owner that's in a market that, you need to be able to do this in order to survive.
Yep.
Like you're robbing Hilton's brand from it.
I feel like there's going to be, and I've spoken with a couple of management companies that have a lot of Hilton properties, and they're beginning to see people wanting to shift from Hilton to other franchises because the restrictions
now, Hilton's
are just
not
tight.
the only one who restricts it.
They're not, but they're the ones
Marriott
that are
doesn't allow vanity sites, right?
you can beg forgiveness on
They
Marriott.
still have autograph. A lot of autograph members have them.
Well,
I think they crack down on the JWs and the full service Marriotts and guys like that.
And you got to look at the
still
repercussions
kind of
too, right?
behind the autograph guys. I
You
think
can always beg forgiveness, but with Hilton, they were coming in and threatening some severe penalties that really impact the bottom line. With Marriott, you can kind of skirt around it a little more, and they might tell you need to stop doing certain things, but I haven't come across any enforcement. So
yeah.
and
Well,
IHG
and Marriott's
wide
sitting there
open,
not.
they don't
Yeah.
They have restrictions, but they allow you to do it as long as you adhere to their standards. They don't.
Feels like we could create a LeBron James meme out of this.
I think Marriott's busy trying to hang on to all those Starwood and everything else, right? With this whole integrated.
And obviously getting into the mall business and getting into the home sharing business.
Okay, before we move it, I know.
I recently heard they were getting into pharmaceuticals and cosmetics as well.
Yeah, probably sex toys. I heard there's low profitability there.
Leave it to this show to always go that step beyond.
Is there a line we will cross?
Stuart Butler is the Roseanne Barr of the hospitality industry now.
So before we go on to, and I do want to talk about Marriott, but I think the interesting thing is still on Airbnb. They are so multifaceted in what they're doing. I mean, for the royal wedding, there's an article. They contributed $11 million or 11 million pounds in extra income to the local people around Windsor and things like that. And all of a sudden you go, wow, that's a really good story for those.
That is a great story of Airbnb lining the pockets of the wealthiest people in London.
Right. So
if I've ever heard a really touching story on how Airbnb has given a leg up on those who need it the least, that's definitely one of them.
Absolutely. Funny. But then there's one other thing, and I may actually even try. Lauren, tell me if this is okay. A screen share on. I think one last thing that's very interesting with Airbnb on here. Let's see if I can get this to do this properly. Maybe. Let's see. Hopefully I can get this to pop up. Maybe.
We'll see. I've never tried this on Facebook. There we go. I think we isolated the Deco. What I do is, for those who are watching us on Facebook and now watching us back again, sorry, I discontinued the simulcast and restarted it as just Facebook. And I've been told that the Echo disappeared on Facebook. So
is that now on a different link?
Yeah, I did just straight pipe to Facebook. I'm not doing it also on Periscope. We had to drop off our Periscope.
I'm sorry.
And so okay. The multiplexer, the flux was the flux capacitor. The flux capacitor got turned off, and it's just a DeLorean right now. All right.
Okay. Well, can you guys see the AirDNA screen?
I see a black screen.
I see black screen. I see black.
You see a black screen? That's excellent. Thank you, Webinar Jam, for being able to let me do that.
Pick which screen you want to share, because that sometimes is the issue. But
well, that's what I did. I put screen sharing. Let's try to figure this out, and then I say
it's better. It's got to be worth it, because if it's not
application.
worth it,
it is. I think
it's
it is
a cool
worth
tool.
it. Yeah, and the interesting thing is AirDNA is a separate. Do you see a black screen or?
It's black screen.
Yep. So while we're talking about that, let's pick apart further the 11 million pounds in revenue that they drove to this very rich neighborhood. So what do you think? Maybe that's 10 of the homes, monthly mortgage.
Yeah, it was in houses in the richest area of London, right around the castle. So
Saudi princes are very thankful to Airbnb for lessening their carry cost for their flat near the royal family.
Hey, Robert, could you throw the link up into the chat? I'll try and see if it maybe just
okay. Oh, here, this may do it right here. One last shot at it.
All right.
Here.
Black screen.
Hang on.
Still a black screen.
Still black screen.
Black screen.
Yeah. Black screen. Still
a black screen.
Correct.
Ooh, there's now a weird picture of you.
A weird picture of me. Excellent.
I don't see a weird picture of him.
He's in his Speedo.
Oh, that picture, yeah.
I think it's more of a mankini.
Okay.
Hold on.
Nobody wants.
Now you get me
seared that image into the minds of people. Thank you very much, Ed.
I thought that was
ruined their weekend.
I see a black screen. There we go. Now I see
a screen.
Airbnb.
Okay. So Lauren, I can give you Yeah, let me. It's actually you've got to go look for Nice. So that's the only one that's
It's spelled nice, by the way.
Nice.
Nice?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Let me throw this into the
Nice,
link,
France?
the link here.
Yes.
Well, no, here we go. Just go like this. Just click on the. Oops, click on the link that I am posting here into our.
He's got it. He's pulled it up.
They've got a market grade of A-. Robert, can you not
There
see
you
the
go.
shared screen that Lauren has up?
I can now see the shared screen that Lauren has up. Is
Is
that's
this
great.
what you were looking for?
That was what I was looking for. So, excellent. So yeah, what's interesting is Airbnb does not own or control AirDNA, but they're letting these guys share all this information, right? So normally you would see a company that would go, you guys are, hitting our API or doing way too much.
Yeah,
And
but
AirDNA is doing amazing
by
analytics.
allowing this, it does allow Airbnb to skirt some of the government complaints about
Absolutely.
transparency and who's renting units and all of that. So this is a great way for them to say, listen, we've made this publicly available to a company that's completely unrelated to us that has done a great job. Go there, stop bothering us.
Right. So, Lauren, if you just want to go through the screen at the top, you've got an overall market grade, which is looking at supply and demand dynamics, the average daily rate, occupancies, revenues, how the breakdown is of full unit rentals versus shared, rooms and things like that, or private rooms and shared. All these different
Really
rental
fan of white.
rates. Right. Yeah, it's really, exactly. Some pretty amazing stats. And the interesting thing is you don't see stats like this for the hotel industry at all. I mean, the granularity of this.
Because none of the stakeholders in the hotel industry want these stats public.
Absolutely. Right.
Like no one involved wants them public. Marriott doesn't want their stats like this public. Real estate investors don't want their stats like this public. Expedia doesn't want their stats like this public. Like, no one wants it.
Right.
Airbnb allows it for the reason I just said, which is the governments who complain that there's illegal rentals happening and that Airbnb is partaking in hiding that. This clears them from that accusation.
Right. And it also shows that, yes, there are where you can say, hey, here are how many people are these professional, very high-end super hosts who are controlling this amount of the market. It gives the local destination and the government the ability to start cracking down on these guys. But I think Airbnb has now looked at that and said, you know what, that's good business because that's our Achilles heel. If we're just completely, getting beaten up over this being pseudo hotels, then that's what takes us down. So let's take the wind out of the sails of the hotel industry, right?
Well, and let's also just be like, listen, governments sit here and complain that that Airbnb was hiding this. Nope. Yeah. What do you do to get out of that? Make all the data available, knowing damn well that no one inside the government's going to spend the time to try and pick it apart.
Right. If you're a smart government, you take the data feed yourself and verify that everyone that's listed there, every property that's listed there, the owners are paying the taxes appropriately.
Right.
Robert, I think I found what possibly was the problem. If there's two functions to sharing the screen, is the share the screen function in Webinar Jam, and then there's the selection of screen and the indication of the screen. And then
he indicated Mankini.
Exactly.
Mankini.
Yep, and I selected that for some reason. So,
are we moving on to Marriott's plan?
One thing I wanted to say before we move on from Airbnb. So the China deal, right? The fact that they have the balls to say, no, we're going to go it alone in China, whereas Uber and others have said, no, we're going to partner with a Chinese company. The challenge it's really, really brave because the way China operates, a lot of these businesses, the government's heavily involved, right? And the government has a vested interest in the success of the Chinese counterpart. So they're not just going up against this Airbnb in China, they're going up against the country of China, which, they've got to have some pretty good reason to do that, in my opinion.
Maybe they're playing the fact that China wants some people inside these giant ghost cities that have been erected inside of China, and so maybe they're thinking China will look past it just to have some economic viability inside these ghost cities.
Maybe just long enough for them to be successful for China to come in
And swoop it up.
swoop it all up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and then the last one was what Ed mentioned earlier about the reconciling GraphQL and Thrift at Airbnb,
Yes.
which I think we want to do a deep dive on
Yes.
that for the rest of the show.
I think we need to spend 2 hours on this because our audience is the audience for this conversation.
but I thought the reason
We're not talking about
this.
skin graphs. Just I want to clear that up for those who
Exactly.
may accidentally spend an hour listening to us talk to only then realize we weren't talking about skin graphs.
Yes, this is the whole engineering side of Airbnb, but they're also very generous on sharing what they're doing in terms of personalization and the technologies and how they're moving things forward. And I think that's part of their initiative for how they, again, are being transparent and trying to attract engineers who are trying to do really interesting stuff. And we're a good open company to work for, and we do here's a great we get to share the stuff. It isn't all secret where it's inside here and you can't tell anybody. Really, really, really smart approach to
Yeah, and this is one of the keys to their success, right? It's what's allowing them to stay so agile. Someone like Expedia cannot innovate at the rate that Airbnb can because they just have a completely different mindset and approach to how they're doing engineering and product development. So it's a good model. I think you're going to see a lot of other startups, technology startups kind of emulate the way Airbnb's been successful.
Yeah, but let's also be honest. It's a lot easier for Airbnb to innovate than it is for Expedia, just by the fact that it's a difference between a private and public company.
Yeah.
For now. Yeah, true.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
Yep. And they're going to be private for a while longer, maybe next year. Who knows? We'll have to see what the what's here. So
given the current camera angles and so forth, is that whiteboard behind you, Ed, the mind of Ed St. Ange? Is that yeah?
And if you notice, it looks a lot like my children's drawings, but
which is that's.
I just happened to look back there going, wow, that's some very interesting diagrams you got going on workflow. Anyways.
That's how I solve complex problems.
That's right. Complex problems with simplistic strings. Mr. Robert, what else do we got?
Boy, they're just so, I think we've exhausted not only the Airbnb topic, but our audience. So what else can we,
and the presenters.
And the presenters. Everyone's exhausted.
I mean, we could toss up the interesting hotel names, but then we'll just share the link and let them find it out for themselves.
Oh yes, yeah. I thought that was just a little fun thing. How about
is that the first time you've ever shared a link on the notes with a link from The Sun, the English newspaper?
I believe so. I think so. Yeah.
It was an interesting link, yes. But anyway.
And they even actually just a comment on The Sun editorially, they even misspelled one of the names
the
in
elephant
the headline. It was Elephant Butte, but they dropped the E to make it Elephant Butt to make it more clickbaity on their on their headlines. So there's so much for the state of journalism. So,
that's fine. Well, it's The Sun. I mean, it's a step up above the National Enquirer.
And the Earth revolves around the sun, isn't that the?
That's the newspaper my dad bought every single day growing up. I got to read the Sun,
really?
except for Sundays, because Sundays was the News of the World, which was the same company. They're the ones that got in all the trouble for the wiretapping and had to shut down. And so I think the Sun's 7 days a week now. But it's also, this is the difference between England and America, I guess. But the Sun is also famous for what it calls its page 3 girls. So literally every day that newspaper would come, and I was a 7-year-old boy, and my dad would have it sitting right there, and I'd open it up, and right there on page 3 is a topless girl every single day. It's the weirdest thing. I'm surprised it still exists.
Whatever sells papers. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think that would really fly with the Me Too movement over in this country. I don't know.
The Pound Me Too movement?
Yeah.
No. Probably not. No. Anyways, hey, actually, just to throw something quick in the mix that's relevant for me right at the moment is chasing down and working micro influencers. But part of the strategy component of that client I was saying about in New York, the new opening hotel in Midtown, is there's a few dynamics going on in New York right now. There's a lot of inventory coming to market that was in the pipe already. There's transition of inventory in market, and there's not a declining demand in market, but a saturation of inventory compared to the demand. And so it's been really kind of strong, useful since we're starting the hotel out kind of clean and fresh. Getting the influencers in is really helping our review rating system to make sure that we start strong in the process. But the process of going through the micro-influencer selections and so forth, because anybody can make a nice glossy, anybody can make some interesting stats, but doing the research, the homework, is it really what they say they are? Do they have the audience that they really do? Are they posting what they really say they are?
It's also understanding
that can burn time.
I mean, some of the best micro-influencers I've come across are actually just modern day PR people. Like, they're content creators that have a very good style that just also happen to match up a distribution network with it. With people who enjoy their style and everything like that. But really, the most value you get out of micro-influencers is their content that they create, not their distribution network. Because, listen, you can go look at any of the companies. Robert's got a cool one out of Australia, right, that you found, that one we were looking at. And they'll all tell you that a large portion of the numbers that an influencer says they have in their network, you can write off a large chunk of that as useless, which actually then pushes most influencers below even micro-influencer. It pushes them down to advocate. Micro-influencer, generally you're talking north of 10,000 followers, which is amazing that 10,000 is micro. But if you look at it for what it is, which is some of these people stylistically are the same people that 10 years ago you would have hired as designers or content creators, things like that. They're now gig economy. They're doing it themselves.
Photographers mostly. Photography has been one of the main influencing decision, and in the process of doing this, it's kind of interesting to think back to what we used to do years ago from a digital marketing perspective, or what you called it e-commerce at the time or something. It's all SEO. It's all SEO. We've had the conversation about, what do you do with SEO now? It's the mainstream stuff. And now it's a very fine mix of going through this process of micro-influencers. Even localized advocates are in my mind, really strong key. We're looking at some advocacies in New York that have very strong pull because they're such a contributing factor to some of the social platforms. They're like some of the lead people that are participating in some of the social platforms in New York, and they have a higher value to me.
Just you open it up to guests.
Yeah,
guest advocacy is fantastic.
And you know what? It will be.
If only there was a platform that made that easy.
I know.
And if only they had finally signed their contract for such a platform to exist
this morning.
This morning.
But I agree with that. I think
actually, you want to talk about something fun. We've recently been lucky that we've taken on a couple of customers that are really creative. One of them is actually one of Tim's accounts. And they have taken the opportunities our platform create to a completely different level. So this one customer has even gone to the point where they're now promoting a live stream for when they name the winners of a contest. So they'll promote a week before that they're going to live stream the winners, and they did their first one. The woman was dressed up like an award show, had a big envelope, and like in the background was like the view out of the hotel, and she like opened it up and like named the winner. Had over 2,000 views in the first hour.
Wow.
The creativity, it cost them nothing except for time and thoughtfulness. We have some just really cool customers right now that are really taking advantage of every opportunity our platform creates for them, and it's at a pace now where we're trying to case study this all out, where we have just a backlog of case studies of new interesting things people are doing with our platform.
Stuart, you were going to pop on something before we
unfortunately I was going to say that Ed, I actually agree with Ed that a lot of the value of micro-influencer is the content they're creating as much, if not more, than the reach. And I think the mistake a lot of folks make, from my perspective, because we work in collaboration with our clients when they're kind of looking for micro influencers. We'll put them in point them in the right direction, help them with the resources, but ultimately we want them to host, so we want them to have the relationship. So what I've learned is, a lot of folks are spending time with the micro influencer once they get to the property, right? They're trying to make them have a good time, but they're not spending the time up front, either doing their diligence, reading the content, actually negotiating what the deliverables are, or building a relationship. Because if you've already established a relationship with that person before they come to the property, they're more likely to have a better experience, to go the extra mile, to produce more content and things like that.
Being hospitable and building relationships
Can you believe it?
Better results.
Yeah,
that sounds suspicious to me. I don't know.
It's fishy. It's definitely fishy. But a lot of people focus so much on the numbers, right? How many followers they have, what's their engagement, what's their reach, all these vanity, well, not vanity metrics, but just pure empirical data, that they're not focused on the substance, and that's, to me, where the big value comes.
I'll even add to that. First off, to please take note that anybody that's listened to this or plays back on the recording of this, that you're talking about the fact that you're wanting to translate the relationship to the client. And I can guarantee you a ton of agencies out there want to keep this the secret stuff, that it's all engagement with them. It's all handled by them. They don't want the influence. And it's nonsense. It is. Yeah. It's nonsense. But the fact that you point that out, that's what you do, is the best way. And that there is a time cycle. I mean, I've had to answer unique questions when we were first presenting this influencer concept to a couple of clients. Is, they're like, well, I want to track what they're doing, for what they generate for us for business. Whoa, first off, wrong conversation. I mean, we're not talking about them posting ads for us, okay? We're talking about them creating content that you don't have for yourself. And it's not about what they that you track. It's what they produce that you get the benefit from. It's literally changing their mindset. But
it's helping them also is what's the real value here, and the real value is the content. In the case of micro influencers, the real value is the content. When you get into advocacy, the real value is the trust that's being distributed, the storyteller. But I mean, and then you don't get a mix of both unless you get into celebrity endorsement. Right, but even that's not working as well anymore. No, unless you're in jail and you need a person to give you your pardon, then you get those times.
Well, and you really have to understand how these quote influencers are behaving in their network, not just how their followers are behaving, but how they're interacting with each other. So again, just to give a plug for these Lumio Analytics guys. They're only looking at Instagram, but it's a great thing. And they actually did a case study, which I thought was so cleverly evil. They invented, I think it was 3 or 4, they 2 fictitious influencers, right? They just made them from scratch, complete sock puppet accounts, and they got 4 brand deals from them, right? And just with horrible stats. I mean, they just wanted to kind of test this. And of course, they didn't take the people's money and do all this. It was just a proof of, look at how ridiculous this is. But I mean, they had somebody with, 46,000 followers, 74 posts, and you could say that they had like 9,000 valuable followers. But all these guys are lowly engaged.
That gives me an idea. We should start a hospitality blockchain.
But these guys are keeping some stats on their pod engagement rate, right? And the pod engagement are these little pods where these influencers feed each other, right? And so it's basically like cross-selling things. It's the old SEO kind of link farm type thing.
Marketers are the worst, man. People
they're always looking for the shortcut.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things that I think I've realized, right? If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And when it's really good, it does not scale well. It never does. So whether you're doing link building, whether you're doing influencer marketing, things like that, you've got to do it one by one the right way to make it effective. Because when you try to scale it, it's going to collapse just like this. Right. And I don't know if you guys listened to Tim's podcast this week. He published the first one because we gave him a hard time last week. In a while, he published. And it was really good, but it was talking about GDPR from the perspective of not what it means, but why does it have to exist? And it's because of this, because marketers are evil in general. We try to game every system.
Again, I don't think evil. I think lazy.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We often take a blunt object to put like the micro influencers. Okay, you made a very good point that the client needs to engage with what this influencer represents, what their style is, Right, and so that when they come in, it's an informed discussion. Because I get this conversation like, well, do whatever you're going to do, and it's like, no. If you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. And if you don't ask and understand what it is they can produce for you, you can't lead them in the places that would be of most interest to them either. I mean, if you have a very photographic fixed influencer coming in that loves artistic appeal for whatever it is, then those conversations to lend towards whatever it is that you have as assets related to history, your interior design work, whatever. And then if somebody's all about the food, then of course you're going to want to go make sure the conversation is lean on that side. It's making sure that all the dots get connected in that conversation, not just whatever it's going to cost you. They're staying in the room. It's a comp. Well, what we do? Right. No, you're treating it like the old fam trip stuff, and the old pay the reporter kind of thing. And it's not that world. That's not the world anymore.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Since Tim's not here to defend himself, I'm going to say that podcast had to have been inspired by our blog post from a couple of weeks ago, which I posted the link to.
Did he plagiarize you again? He does that every show.
I said inspired. I did not say plagiarized.
If only Tim had original thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, does he have to take everything?
Since he's not here to defend himself because he's Miami Phoenix, if you read his email.
Miami Phoenix, yeah.
He's Miami
MIA
Phoenix.
or Miami, yeah. It's
he's MIA because he's PHX.
That's it.
He's Miami Airport, Phoenix Airport. Yeah. Listen. I think what happens too much, like you said, Lauren. It's the blunt instrument. I've been saying for a long time that a lot of marketers today aren't even aware of how bad they are because it's been covered up by the massive growth of all these networks and all of this. So the fact that you're bad at email, or the fact that you're bad in social, or the fact that you're bad in all these different channels has actually been covered up because it's all growing at such a pace that even
easy, right? It's been easy to be successful.
And that has created, I mean, first of all, how many of you got a ton of spam email because of GDPR?
That was email. For 3 days it was email.
That's all I had was like privacy update, policy update, this update.
Or any web visit you had, our policies have changed. But connect for this. I mean, it was just every incessant navigation was a pain.
Right.
And
again, it's like, gosh, like the day before, guys. Really? The day before.
Yeah.
They're still coming out, man. It's not just the day before. It was the day after and the day after.
Well, did you see about the company? It was in our Slack channel, but one company went to deploy their privacy update because, they're trying to be in GDPR compliance, and the entire list was viewable in the BCC.
Oh, good God.
Excellent. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Perfect.
That's transparency for you, isn't it? Oh, I thought transparency was good. I'm sorry.
That's all right. There are still unfortunately URL strings that are being used by booking windows that are e-com channels that still have last names being dragged through them too for PII. There's still data.
Last name on its own is not PII, right?
But then when you add confirmation number, it's the string of. You're right. It's just one piece by itself isn't. But the string of collaboration
which
of other
technically is in violation of Google Analytics terms of service. So you could literally have your Google Analytics shut down if you are passing.
And let's be honest,
URLs.
It's safer to violate European Union standards than it is to violate Google standards.
Which one's going to cost you more at the end of the day? If you lost all your Google Analytics data, that's pretty costly.
Yeah. Right. Yep. If you go dark, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
All right,
Mr. Robert, what else you got in the bag of happiness?
Can we get to Marriott plans for home sharing malls and all-inclusive resorts?
I think that was the next one that I thought would be a good one to talk about. So,
yes.
Of course.
I did not read this one, so just for time, so you'll have to summarize it.
Well, let me help you. The part about malls is that they're saying that hotels should be attached to malls.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting because the mall business
to own malls. They're saying that
I thought they were going
hotels should
to
be attached to
old
malls.
abandoned malls because no one shops in them anymore.
Exactly,
To hotels,
yeah.
But no, instead they're going to put a place for people to stay next to the abandoned building that no one shops in anymore.
Right.
Okay.
which hopefully will hopefully get redeveloped into something useful. Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, if you want to guarantee that one day a year your hotel will sell out, attach it to a mall.
Yeah, that's right.
And Black Friday, you'll get a 2-night minimum length of stay sold out.
That's probably true.
Yeah. And then all-inclusive resorts. I don't know. Is Skift running out of things to write about? Is Marriott like talking too much to Skift? I mean, because
but Marriott on the all-inclusive resorts is certainly they're following Hyatt, right? Because Hyatt, certainly got involved. They've got a couple of them, sort of thing. Or Marriott's eyeing acquisitions. Maybe they're going to go buy a Riu or an Iberostar or something like that.
maybe.
Right? Yeah. Which I would think would be certainly the better approach than trying to do it themselves. I mean,
Marriott, if Marriott were to develop all-inclusive, it should be a Fairfield all-inclusive, and it should be a Ritz-Carlton all-inclusive, right? Ritz is theirs.
Yeah. Well,
so you have your bookends.
Yeah,
and
that's basically what
the Fairfield all-inclusive would probably do really well.
Well, no, you look at Riu. Riu has a good model for that, and they have their standard Rius and then their Riu. I think they call them Grands or whatever.
The Riu Palace is
Palace is the higher end one.
I've stayed at the Riu Palace Las Americas in Cancun.
Ah, yes, I'm quite familiar with that property. So so the palaces are nice. The regular Rius are great too. I mean, and they operate those things like cruise ships. They run full. There's lots of activities. There's free alcohol, and people
are they
have
next
a
to
great
mall?
time.
Are they built attached to a mall?
They've got they don't have to be
Marriott's
anything next to them. That's the problem.
Marriott's going to make all-inclusive mall.
Yeah, they're going to corner that market.
Yeah, that is the downside for the destination, is that these all-inclusive resorts, everybody stays inside and they don't necessarily visit the destination.
Well,
which is a little bit of a disappointment.
To be fair, a lot of the destinations where all-inclusive became very popular are destinations that you should not leave the resort area.
No, stop that. That's
all right. Name an all-inclusive resort that you know of in a city where Lauren would be safe walking around at night outside of the resort area.
Oh, Cabo San Lucas. Definitely. You can go almost anywhere.
Right,
almost anywhere in Cabo. Certainly the resort areas in Cancun.
No, outside
as long as you're on
the resort area is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, outside of the resort, like the strip in Cancun. Strip in Cancun, I would even say Playa
I'm not even safe walking off of Bourbon Street by 2 blocks, okay?
Playa del Carmen. Playa del Carmen. I'd give you Puerto Vallarta. I would give you Bavaro Beach in
because you're only
Dominican
thinking
Republic, things like that.
I got to be honest with you. A lot of those places, going out of resort areas, going into rainforest, that would kill Lauren.
No, I would say Jamaica.
Frank gets struck by lightning.
I'm sorry.
The grill in Jamaica. You want to go outside of the resort? It's a great place. Yeah.
What?
So there are lots.
Wait. What?
The grill? The grill? The grill's fantastic.
I'll send you 3 articles of people I personally know who lost their spouse on their honeymoon.
Lost their. How did they lose? To death?
You know 3 people.
I know 3 different people. Negril specifically.
What kind of friends does Ed keep?
Hey,
Double
I've got questions
who go outside the resort area.
Who your friends are?
Yeah.
What exactly were they involved with in the grill?
Wow.
Sort of thing. And
no, I'm just saying. Listen, all inclusive generally has developed heavily in areas where there's not a big draw outside of the resort area. That.
Except for the controlled excursions and things like that.
Right, exactly.
I would say, not to be totally unfair, but you talk about the Dominican Republic, you talk about Jamaica, you talk about in some cases the Bahamas, depending on what part of the Bahamas,
what island. Right.
There are places that when you walk off, you're definitely not in Kansas anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
There's a stark difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that of all of them, I think it's
as there are. And you can make that same argument in New York City. If you stay out of the tour, you got the tourists who are wandering out of Times Square into areas where they shouldn't be, or they go a little bit, too far out on the Upper East or Upper West Side or something like that, and they get into trouble really, really quickly.
There's a reason why you don't go down a dark alley. Okay, it came from New York.
Dubai. I mean, there's another one. So, but the mall thing, I kind of laugh at for the point Stuart's making, which is malls are kind of dying. So maybe you missed the boat on this, Marriott.
Wait, did we check the date on the article? Was it like?
Oh yeah, was
it like 2008,
1988, 1984?
It was today.
Yeah. Okay.
But to say, just to go down that rabbit hole one more time, if you could figure out a viable solution to reconstitute the locations of malls to something, you have a booming opportunity of business. Because there's not all malls are that way, but they're centric to travel opportunity, the sense of road work, and it is in locations. Not all fit this criteria, but there's also large vacant space, large already built infrastructure to it.
Yeah,
so
if you figure out how to make a Sears into a hotel, there is a ton of available depressed space.
63 more as of this week. Yeah.
Funny. Yeah. In my hometown of Myrtle Beach, right in the center of the city, it's literally across the street from the convention center, a block from the beach. There used to be a mall that was vacant for a number of years, is now been flattened. The parking lot is still there, but there's nothing there other than utilities running to it. It's been like that for about 15 years.
Right.
And you got to figure, got to be doing something with something like that. Yeah.
Like what? Yeah.
Well, listen.
Well, look at Lauren, Valley View Mall in Dallas. Yeah. Look at Valley View in Dallas.
We have
prime real estate
malls.
about a block away from the Galleria.
So we have two successful malls in Orlando. Both are tourism malls. We have the Florida Mall, which has a hotel attached to it, and that is targeted heavily at the Brazilian traveler. And then we have the Millennium Mall, which is heavily targeted at the Asian traveler. That one doesn't have a hotel attached to it. I can't think of a ton of other cities that have a tourism-based mall. I mean, there are some, but a lot of them have gone to the type of development that you see in more like Bar Harbor, like the like where it's more, they feel more like villages with boutique shops.
That's the standard. That's the standard.
I've also seen where malls have gone ethnic because of the communities. If the city's large enough that they have a strong enough ethnic community that they can create a mall that is ethnically driven, and I think they do well because that's still not an online thing. That's very much a cultural engagement thing.
On the line.
And they've been very successful. Yeah. I saw Vancouver. Vancouver has a great one that it's a great Asian mall. I mean, the food court is freaking phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And then the shops, you're looking at stuff that you would have to know what to look for to ever see them online. So, yeah, those kind of things go up. But yeah, if we can ever crack the nut of what to do with leftover mall space, you'd be a pretty wealthy person, I think.
We don't have to worry. Marriott's figured it out now.
We're late.
Yeah, but it's amazing in Dallas was hellaciously overmauled, right? I mean, It was just absolutely insane. But you have these major malls. Some of them are developing that space into indoor soccer parks and things like that, and like basically city indoor athletic fields and things like that, where they're really struggling. Some are this one at Valley View tried to turn it into a kind of an arts district complex, which failed miserably.
That's what the iDrive Festival Bay Mall in Orlando has tried to go to, which is basically a high-end flea market.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a real challenge. Prime, in many cases, prime real estate, and but you look through this. I mean, even I lived in Milwaukee, outside in Brookfield, which is an affluent suburb. Their main Brookfield Mall. Now there's another one which is kind of nearby, which is doing okay, but that one, its anchor stores were Sears and the Boston store. Both of those are bankrupt and gone, sort of thing. So that mall, there's still a Penny's there. That's it. Right?
Outlet malls are the big tourism draws now.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach has two of those, and that's definitely.
But also what's working well is that now with this mobile economy that we have, in the sense of people that are working from home or remotely and stuff like this, the WeWorks of the world and so forth, they've actually started sucking up some mall space because I have people that work with me that they pop and run around and they go to those places.
It's a cheap space.
It is cheap.
Yeah. Oh, you know what Marriott should try to do is attach a hotel to the Amazon.com.
Amazon. for all
There
the
it
just the
is.
employees.
I
that
mean,
live
since we're
there.
Hey, who's
talking
the- who-
about,
Wait,
since we're talking about
who's
unfiltered ideas getting published,
who's the last in contention for the new Amazon base? Who's still in the running? Is Dallas still in the running?
I stopped paying
Dallas is
attention
still-
when it wasn't.
Dallas
Orlando.
is still in the running, but I don't think Dallas is going to get it. I can't imagine. But my money's on Washington D.C. They had three
'cause they
of the
need it.
destinations they're doing. Well, one is Bezos owns the Washington Post and has like the largest house in the region, so he already likes that area. And they had three finalists were in that area. I think
Well,
that's
they have
the
so much available real estate. I mean, it makes sense. Like they're not going to all run into the problems they ran into in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, they've got to figure out if they're going to be in Virginia or Maryland or wherever, right? And they're letting all those cities bid against it, right? They're just like,
Right,
hey, we'll give you the land, there won't be any taxes, do this.
having just been in Seattle, Amazon is not always perceived positively in the Seattle market.
No.
I mean, there's a
Oh
lot
no!
of-
See, Amazon
No.
killed Seattle's housing market, basically.
Oh my gosh, and
Almost
not handling the
single-handedly.
homeless market either. Yeah,
And that
they're
why-
actually making a
that's why,
substitute. for
like,
that.
I think it's brilliant that they're thinking about going into a city with such a overbuilt housing market. I mean, there's just so much housing available in Washington D.C. that
Oh, yes,
putting Amazon there.
and great amount of network of roads too. I mean, you can get
Right,
anywhere
I mean-
easily in
Oh, yeah.
DC.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no problem driving around DC at all. Never a
It makes
traffic issue.
complete sense.
Yeah. I personally
All right.
would love to see Amazon move in next door to where I am. There's plenty of room for them, but probably not going to happen. I can't imagine, but you never know. Yeah.
All right.
So-
It's weird. It's
Hey,
like
I think
like another season of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. It's what
It
it feels like.
That's how they
absolutely
ran.
It's like Amazon's like, will you accept this rose, Dallas?
Well, yeah, and that's been going on for decades. I mean, Boeing. I grew up in Seattle. My dad worked for Boeing, right? They still have all their plants in Seattle. Where's their headquarters? Chicago, because they gave them just insane tax deals and real estate deal. And it's like, okay, yeah, we'll put our headquarters in Illinois. So there we go.
I do want to make sure we don't miss one article, which was kind of a current topic of conversation goes on, is the integration of revenue management. It's the one that you pulled from.
I want
Focus.
that one and Mary Meeker's Internet Trends report.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
I want to
I
make
think there
those-
was a stat in there of Mary Meeker's report, something about retail, like brick and mortar stores are on the decline. You think,
Yeah.
you think Marriott read that or not? It said online retail's increasing and brick and mortar's decreasing. Who would have thought?
Well, okay, do you want to do
yeah.
Meeker's first, because Meeker had the fun
Well,
part about the
because
mobile growth.
Meeker's
Mobile
actually-
growth also.
It's her.
to talk about. So I mean, maybe we
Yeah,
should.
her report is 280 pages of just amazing stuff that you will see in presentations for the next year because the stats
Yes.
are just absolutely unbelievable. So but anyway, what I wanted to point out, well, actually, Lauren, go ahead, talk about mobile. Everybody pick out their favorite stats, and then
Well, no, I
I'll come in with a
think just in the general terms, because I don't know I didn't pull it up right in front of to give the exact number to it. You can, but the fact that mobile growth is plateauing in the sense of growth, and that mobile
it's
phone
his
sales. Right. It's that
saturation point.
Device sales is plateaued. Is what it is.
and just
Right.
as internet
So the
growth
sales-
has hit a saturation point.
But usage, the time spent is
Gone
increasing.
through the roof.
Right?
Yes, it's increasing.
And
Right.
interestingly, along with that, Wi-Fi adoption has gone right along with usage. It's gone through the roof.
right.
So could we say that access to higher speeds across more devices has helped really change how much time people spend on the internet?
I think we could, Ed.
Perhaps.
I think we could.
That's a stretch. I don't know. That's really hopping from.
How
point A
about
to point Z.
simplicity? That was the other one I really liked, where simple things have become more pervasive. And so simpler UIs and more upfront. So the example she used was like the messaging platform Telegram or Square Cache or Spotify have all really done well.
Or the president of the
because
United States. He's
simplicity.
pretty simple. Sorry.
I'm
That's just a deep cliff. That's just a deep cliff right there. That's just driving it off the rail.
And simplicity in payment has also driven digital commerce up higher.
Huh. Reducing friction increases. Huh. That's weird.
I can't believe any of this data, because if this was all true, hotel websites would not be the way they are. I mean, I have to think that the entire hotel industry.
What's wrong? Wait, maybe you're missing something. What's exactly wrong with hotel websites, Ed? I don't.
Well, this is saying that simplicity in design and reducing friction increases digital commerce, but that's not at all. That can't be true.
No, I think the more bottlenecks you create, the more hurdles you put in front of people,
right?
The less
forced navigation and multi-step processes.
Yesterday, I was on one of the big digital agencies' websites that serves a lot of the hotel industry's websites. And I was thinking to myself how they've tapped into the idea that an 18-second page load is like the perfect mix.
That anticipation.
Anything worth something is worth the wait. Anything worth something is worth the wait.
That's what I was thinking. Or, listen, 18-second page load means you get to stare at the footer, which is sitting at the top of the page, because for some reason their footer loads first before all the middle loads. I was thinking, man, maybe I should click on the Facebook icon and leave their website and go to Facebook, because that's what their website's telling me to do. I think Mary Meeker's off here. I think reading tea leaves.
Robert, you have her phone number. Get her on the show. Let's give her a call. Say, come on over here and do this.
I think they should look at the hotel industry's design and understand that reading tea leaves is far more interesting to consumers than simple, fast processes.
Well, and let's put it this way: as long as I've been following Mary's report, the hotel industry has never been mentioned. So the online travel agencies get mentioned periodically, and Airbnb this year. Actually, Booking.com, one interesting stat they had in here was the customer satisfaction index, right? So Amazon was kind of the leader at 85% satisfaction, which when you're that big and you have people that happy, it's like, wow, that is quite the account. Google, 82% satisfaction, right? I mean, that's a pretty daunting stat. Facebook,
18% were the only people that were willing to go over and complain before they were blacklisted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The only people that could find someone at Google to complain to.
That's right. That is a strategy, though. A successful strategy. Facebook and Instagram are only 72, so they've taken a big hit recently. But Netflix, it's 79. So that's still pretty strong, because I got to think a big complaint is they don't have everything I want to watch, right? There's got to be a big chunk of that. But then Booking.com was mentioned on the list, 78. So there's Booking.com's satisfaction index in the U.S. This isn't global where you go, oh, well, yeah, everybody's using it. This is in the U.S. where they're still relatively small compared to Expedia. 78% satisfaction, 1 point below Netflix. So that's, and all these book direct sort of things by the hotel, absolutely. By God, do your best to be smart, drive traffic to your website. But when you've got that many people satisfied with something like that, you are not going to put Booking.com out of business with your book.
And it just so happens that Booking.com is the most frictionless experience online out of any of the OTAs.
Right.
I think actually, Robert, you made a very good point about the fact that when this whole hubbub about direct booking and the things that went on last year about how the properties are making you join membership so you could go over and get a better rate and so forth, they were driving to a crap site. We've always talked about the fact that before you drive business to your business, make sure your business is doing good business. And so if your website's a piece of crap and you're driving people to force yourself to do direct channel bookings for some benefit reward, they're not going to come back after they had to be going through the painful process. You've just driven them away for the second iteration of their business. And they're going to go to Booking.com.
Yeah, so another interesting tidbit is social media is the area now that's driving discovery, product discovery, with Facebook and Instagram leading the path. by a large amount, which is basically Facebook. I think this tells us, in this industry that hotels should put more coupons on social media.
Well,
There you go.
Because what's the best
you're
way?
hearing it first today on the show.
Best way to
If,
be
if anyone's watching this show and taking notes and doesn't understand sarcasm, they're in a lot of trouble.
To our
I
German
think the
audience,
harder sell,
I am putting on thick sarcasm.
Germans.
Direct channel social media is the way to go. That if you drive it like a
With
hammer
coupons,
through social
but
media,
only coupons
with
and offers.
and offers. Hard sell. I got a room. I got a rate. I got a room. I got a
Hard
rate. Just
sell.
repeat that over
Hard
and over.
sell.
Because there's nothing
exactly.
better in the discovery phase of any decision than cheapening yourself with coupons and
Mhm.
it's the
Basically,
best
what
idea.
you want to do when you're selling your hotel online through social channels, you want to take the same approach Ed did in high school with dating. That hard sell, get to it. That's exactly right.
Actually, I think this is what drew me. This is what drew me to the hotel industry. Is the no nonsense approach of how they sell themselves. Like, just get right to it.
Exactly.
Don't even say hello. Just sleep here
right.
tonight. You want to sleep here tonight?
Well, or you could take the retargeting approach. Just repetitively hammer the person with this question over
Are
and
you
over
sure?
and over.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Are you
sure?
sure?
Oh yeah. Yep. I'm here. I'm following you. I had a great time on the date. Didn't you have a great time on the date?
I know you said no, but is it still no? Is it still no? Is it still no? We just actually surmised 80% of all hotel marketing efforts right now by picking on them, because that literally is what most of them do. Is like they hard drive stuff, their room and rate sales, and the repetitive retargeting is mind numbing, and they don't seem to get it. So now we have GDPR floating around because somewhere somebody's got to put a fence that says
Yeah,
at least
Facebook had to take away their organic reach.
yeah.
You know what? No more organic reach for you guys. You can't handle it.
Yeah. You can't handle the truth. Yeah. No, it's unfortunately true, and it's not even a lesson learned. It's not even because nothing is going to bait it.
No,
Everything is
still the next thing they can exploit. Until it's got taken away for sure.
SMS
Yeah,
message.
until they beat it to death. Bots and
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying bots. Everyone, blockchain. Yeah, got to put some blockchain on some bots.
Well, but
So
the
they're
other
really
thing is,
slow bots that can't complete a task without good connectivity. That isn't available.
right.
Well, the site loads.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
The bot will pop up while you're waiting for the website to come up.
But one of the travel or the hospitality related organizations out there that we've discussed a little bit earlier, maybe we can go back to, is discussed heavily in the Meeker report, which is Airbnb. So she highlights, actually there are a couple slides, is number one is that provides income opportunities for the hosts. They have 5 million global active listings. And you go, well, that's really interesting. But then you look at the pace of guest arrivals and you go, well, yeah, they're adding lots of hosts, but the numbers of guest arrivals are increasing geometrically, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. So I think in 2000, and this is only 2015, 2016, they didn't have the 17
Well,
17
since
or 18
today
numbers.
is Say Something Nice Day, Robert, I think we should move on from the Mary Meeker report because it's not very nice of you to point these things out to the hotel industry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was that plus, okay, so that's the host benefit. The other, and again, she's looking at this high level, how is this meaningful to the world, right? To change, these trends. Airbnb consumer benefits, and they went through average hotel rate in New York City, 306. For Airbnb, 187. Sydney, Tokyo, 220 for a hotel, $93 for an Airbnb, sort of thing. Moscow, $65. Berlin, 92.
But here's the thing.
I mean,
hold on.
substantially lower.
Part of the problem with using this as a example is, first of all, talking about this sends the wrong message. Airbnb should be cheaper than hotels because Airbnbs do not have amenities, service, staff, security.
Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of things you don't
Taxes,
get.
insurance.
Right, taxes, insurance,
Right.
ADA compliance, background checks.
Oh no, absolutely.
Now, the technologically advanced Airbnbs at least have hidden cameras. So, I mean, maybe they could charge a little bit more because of that. But I think,
or they could charge us by
monetize
selling the footage.
Yeah, they monetize.
Or they monetize.
how they make money.
Or share the data off of their Amazon Echoes.
I would
when they
actually
leave.
be concerned. Where I would be concerned, and where I'd say it was a death march tone of news for the hotel industry, is if the Airbnbs were getting more money than the hotels, because then that means that the hotel industry got it wrong on what's the value, and the value isn't the room. Airbnb's rates are showing you that the value isn't the room.
Right. Oh no, and I would argue, I would certainly argue, and I can't remember if I made this point on a previous broadcast, but my daughter's getting married in Austin in July, and part of her fiance's brothers and sisters, his in-laws are coming in. They could not stay. I might as well call it out because we call out people. The Westin.
You call out people.
The Westin on 6th Street, managed by White Lodging, right? This is a professional brand.
You want to name
Professional.
the GM? I mean, my
Yeah,
God.
you want to say the GOS's name too? Just throw that in there. Just
No, but,
Wow.
but I'm making the point so that because these organizations should know better, right? These are both very professional, top drawer organizations, but these guys wanted to come in and get connecting rooms because they'd had a child.
You got to have a property management system that can handle that, though. I mean, listen, I don't want to give hotels crap for not having products that answer every single person's need. I mean, and that's what you're veering into. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like, there are times I travel.
They wanted a connecting room, not even
right, but their
true-
PMS can't handle that.
But they called the sales department. They went all the way through. They could not, it wasn't just online. They couldn't confirm it. It was the hotel just wouldn't do it, sort of thing. And what are they doing? They're getting this great house on an Airbnb that is huge. It's going to be less money because it was going to wind up being about 10 rooms for them. And they just lost that completely through just complete lack of attention to the customer. And it's like, you know what? We can probably figure out how you can get a connecting room for 4 days.
So
we
here's
can
the
probably
funny thing.
figure that out.
The answer isn't to hotels start building houses. There's actually a model in between, and they're called condo hotels. They're actually pretty lucrative, and if you set them up right in the beginning, you can actually get rid of some of the headaches of some of the ones who maybe didn't set up right in the beginning. But if I was Marriott, I wouldn't be sitting here pounding hey, we're getting into the home business. No, build condo hotels.
Well, and they did the vacation road. That's how they developed a huge number of their properties.
Stuart,
right?
There's condo hotels in Myrtle Beach, right?
There's one or two, yeah.
Right.
Majority of inventory here is condo hotel.
And have they been as rocked by Airbnb as
No, not at all.
No, because
Airbnb does not have a ton of inventory in Myrtle Beach, but they also already had a vacation rental pool that was very lucrative for a lot of people. So
And Marriott and all these guys had big. I mean, Marriott Vacation was Vacation Club or whatever. They wound up selling off and that sort of thing. But they developed
because that makes sense. That makes sense to Airbnb's coming up. Let's spin off the part of our business that.
Well, they were even doing that, but they were going asset light.
No,
they were developing
these
these things,
them.
right? Oh no, I know. No, so.
I mean, look at Wyndham. Look at Wyndham Vacation Rentals. Like if
Same
Wyndham
thing.
VR and VO produce so much cash that they're not spinning off from the hotel division, they're spinning the hotel division off from them.
Right.
Because most of the free cash on hand that the current org has is from VR and VO. That blew my mind when I learned that. Like, it's just crazy.
Oh yeah, so I almost ran their distribution business
to be
back,
said,
10 years ago.
Why you
It's
shouldn't
insane.
panic if you happen to be a hotel that has single room units is it's also really weird when I go on a business trip that's at one of these condo hotels and I'm in a 3-bedroom unit by myself. Like it feels weird. It really does that, being in like a 1,900 square foot 3-bedroom unit and I'm literally like using the master bedroom only.
You don't go sleep in each room, each of the rooms, different bed each night.
He just takes all the pillows off of all the beds and puts them on one bed, just so they still have to clean all the rooms.
Of course,
they don't know
That's
where
a very that is a housekeeping hostile approach, Stuart.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean,
Stuart has obviously never
but
worked
it's
in a
true.
housekeeping
Like, you
department.
need to understand that like Airbnb is not going to be the death of the hotel model, right? But we should probably understand that people, when they travel for different things, prefer different things. Like, yeah, I can go through the pain of figuring out cobbling together 3 or 4 rooms so I can comfortably stay with my immediate family at a hotel, or I can just go look for a condo hotel that has 3 bedroom units.
Yeah, but so
and offer the amenities.
In the case of the Westin, though, they may have made us. I mean, they probably didn't. I'm just going to be nice and pretend like they may have made a strategic decision, because they may say, well, if we block these specific units off now, way ahead of time, that may cause us issues when we try to shuffle other inventory later. You know, a lot of these hotels don't assign rooms until the last minute. So,
in this case, I believe it was 4 rooms. 4 rooms for 4 nights, I believe. So 16 room nights at a couple $100 a night. All they wanted was
a piece of business.
Well, this is part of Well, but over this, all they wanted was 1 connecting room, right? That was the one linchpin on whether they get those. Whatever.
They were either too lazy to figure it out. They physically couldn't because of the technology. They chose deliberately not to because they didn't see the upside, or they found out that they were related to Robert Cole, and they were like, "Hell no, I'm not coming to stay."
I'd
rather have Robert Cole insulting me not wanting his business than telling me what I did wrong when I had his business.
That's right. I am staying there. That is the headquarters hotel for my daughter, and that is despite. And let me tell you, the
hotel's still the headquarter hotel. So you're saying
so they didn't lose all the business. They just lost a little.
You're saying that even though they treated you poorly, still gave them.
Oh no, that was purely because of my daughter and her and the wedding planner who said that my daughter didn't want to go up and make a change, right? And I would have, because it took them 3 months, literally 3 months, to get the wedding website up and running, which is just a link to their booking engine, which is basically load the rate sort of thing, because I know the individual who designed that site, and they did quite the nice job on it. And they just, through staff turnover, ineptitude, first they didn't load the inventory properly, so you couldn't.
They're going to look up when is Robert coming to stay. I'm going to make sure his stay is miserable.
After this wedding, I need to hear how the Airbnb experience was, because listen, you're picking on some stuff with this hotel. So now I want to know tell me how the Airbnb was.
But no, my whole point is not really against White. It's White and Westin should not be the guys doing this sort of stuff, right? They have all the tools, all the management technique, but it's all the service delivery, right? It's the points of failure that kill the hotel industry. In this case, it's their sales department, where they had turnover in their Smurf group.
How dare they lose an employee?
That's really unusual in the hospitality industry too. I mean, I don't hear much turnover at all in this industry.
Well, but the ability and having worked in hotel sales departments, of the transition of when somebody leaves to make sure you follow up with all their accounts, make sure you know everything's up to date, has been a given since the early 80s sort of thing. That is a set process. But again, they didn't do it, and then so they messed up the inventory. You could not stay over the Saturday night, which was the day of the wedding, and then they messed up the rates by loading the taxes as an additional room rate. So the tax was $200 a night, which is insanity. I mean, you just went through this, and finally the way they got it fixed was I told them, I will call the Driscoll. Let's just move to the Driscoll, because we had to have a conference call to go, we've got to send out wedding invitations. This thing isn't, working.
But then the wedding planner, who looked remarkably like Martin Short, told you not to.
No. The wedding planner was actually okay with it. My daughter was the one who just said no.
Because you look remarkably like Steve Martin. I'm just saying, there's some familiarity there that
Yeah, but
Father
again,
of the Bride could be happening all over part 12.
but let me tell you, my daughter's telling everybody don't go near this hotel if you want to use it for a wedding. Don't, and she has a lot of friends who are getting married, and
Actually,
honestly,
ironically,
which is
and
just ridiculous, right?
You know what's
I'm
interesting?
actually.
Sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
No, I was going to say, I actually am siding with you, Robert, because coming from a hotel, from GM side and so forth, and the sales team, it wasn't about what we have. It's what is it that you need, and it is
Right.
it is a perception shift. And yes, to everybody else's point, staff turnover, inconsistencies, software inefficiency, everything else, those all should be surmountable by customer satisfaction. If it is financially, you're not going to do it for free. You're not going to do it at a cost unless it's a recovery. But if you're saying you provide these services and then you don't because of the lack of focus of intent, that is a downfall of whoever owns it, runs it, or should be a part of it. I do agree with that part of it. To the other side of it, there are complete limitations that just if you don't care to fix them, they're not going to get fixed and they're not going to solve a problem for you anyway.
There's a lesson here too, I think, about the hospitality industry, right? Which is a lot of people focus on the guest experience as when they walk into the lobby. You guys haven't stayed there yet.
Yeah,
this is your experience, and it's already very negative. You're already very likely to leave bad reviews. You're already spreading negative word of mouth.
Right.
Guest experience starts the minute you have that first contact, whether it's on your website, phone call, whatever.
Yeah, you've already called them out, and you haven't even stayed yet.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and my daughter. The only reason my daughter stuck with it was inertia, right? She had just kind of gone through the frustration of 2 months and just like, do I waste that when we're still kind of at the goal line and can't punch it over? But again, I mean, even I'll rip on them a little bit more. They have not been sending updates in terms of how full the block is, and saying, "Hey, do you need more rooms, or can we do nothing?" Absolutely zip,
right.
Which is again just criminal, right?
So if anyone from the Westin is listening, or if anyone knows anyone at the Westin,
pull this folder out of the file cabinet.
This is fixable. It is not too late.
That's right.
Customer service.
And
they're
going back to something that
they're getting a third of the potential rooms, and what the heck? They're probably they're
going back to one of our earlier conversations about the micro influencers. I use a platform I've shown on the show before, Awario, which is not the only platform, and it's certainly not the most comprehensive, but monitoring what's being said about your product and in market on platforms, whether it be social, websites, blogs, whatever, has helped already in the sense that you have your own influencers in your property or are arriving to your property. They're already talking about being at your property. And being able to identify them and talk with them, it doesn't always mean giving something away or discounting or kissing their butt or whatever. Just engaging them and recognizing whom they are and asking if there's a way to make sure that anything can be added to their stay is an amplification that goes really well, because we've already started happening where we've had people that are micro-influencers or advocates in market that are staying at a hotel. We find that they're indicated that they didn't come to us, reach to us, ask for us or anything, and we made it a point to reach out to them, and that had massive positive effect. And to what you're saying, Robert, it's like they don't know who they're messing with, but by the same token, everybody has a voice in some capacity. And this pre-experience is just going to make it where you're walking in the door already with a chip the size of a sequoia on your shoulder. So
every guest is a potential advocate. Every single guest. Or
you
detractor.
Decided on this one because he should be able to. There's a platform with a platform that would deal with the advocacy.
Somebody should get a company like that where they could share that information, but that sounds too hard to do, and you'd have to be like really smart.
You'd have to be the smartest person on the planet to be able to pull that.
Smartest person on the planet, yeah. They would know that they're the smartest person on the planet because they're always right about what they say. Yeah,
that's right. Nothing.
Tumbleweed.
Should we call it?
I thought we were still on Robert complaining about a hotel booking.
We were going to call emergency medical services for you to. You missed a flip to advertising.
There was a whole 5 minutes. A whole 5 minutes of pandering.
We finally overinflated his ego. I didn't think it was possible.
Actually, maybe that's why I tuned out. To be fair, I mean, I didn't want to bite. Actually, with it being 1 o'clock, I do have to go. Yes, because I actually have things coming up. So, Gentlemen,
Fine.
appreciate
Mr.
the
Ed?
time. Sorry I had to blank out there. I do have to get to something.
Yeah, but when you get to play back at the hour and a half mark, which I know you replay the entire show every day anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah.
You can hear all
Especially
the
because of the high quality audio that is.
Oh yeah, no, it's fixed now. It's been fixed since I had to jump it off for the 15 minutes afterwards. We already got that. The echo's gone.
There we go.
But if you want to find out more about you, Mr. Ed, where can they find out about?
Well, you can find
Mr. Ed
out
Mercedes?
about FlipTube by going to flip.to, or you can find me on social media, Edward St. Ange.
Excellent,
Gentlemen,
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much. Have a wonderful weekend.
See you, Ed.
See ya.
Thank
Don't
you,
forget-
thank you,
Hey,
Ed. And
if you are
we're
going
so
to see
happy-
Deadpool, do not go see Deadpool with your children. And
no, it is an R-rated movie.
yeah, well,
yeah,
it's
but
not,
so was
it's
the
actually-
Matrix. You know?
It's not the movie is not the reason why not to go see it with your children. It's the preview that is played prior to the movie that I would not want to be sitting
Yeah.
next.
Oh,
It-
they did.
it's-
a-
I'm
they
in
did
my
a
late
Red Band
30s,
trailer.
and I wouldn't want to be sitting next to my mom with one of the previews that were played.
Red,
Well, in
Red
that
Band
case-
trailer, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have a
it
good one.
was.
Have a good one,
All right,
gentlemen.
bye, Mr.
See
Ed.
ya.
All right. I do want to make sure. Oh, Mr. Ed,
Yeah.
okay, so yeah. I do want to make sure that we get to hit that one article about the revenue
Yes.
merger
Coming
because
soon to your hotel, yes.
yeah, because it is turning into a pervasive, persistent conversation now that I always know that it's turned into mainstream when even the slowest to come to market begin to talk about it, and it seems
Right.
that finally the slowest to market is beginning to talk about it. And I won't be mean as to the associations that I'm referring to, but anyway. So it is a topic of conversation finally in enough places that they're talking about it. So did you put? I don't know if you put the link up there yet.
I did, yes.
Thank you, sir. So, I mean, from a thought perspective of this, how fast or how soon do you think this merging of the minds potential is going to be? Is it still going to be my sandbox, your sandbox through the rest of this year, or is it going to finally be, look, let's shake hands and bury the hatchet and share honest data and share mutual risk and share mutual decisions? I mean, do you see that this merger between marketing and revenue, this symbiotic relationship will come into reality?
It has to be. I mean, the successful organizations will do it, and the unsuccessful ones will
Successful
ignore
ones
it.
are already doing it, to be fair, I think.
Yeah,
In some
exactly.
cases.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, even going back to the very old, even when it was the 4 Ps of marketing, right? It was product, price, place, promotion. Well, price was part of that with marketing.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, they have to understand that whole offer of what is the bundle of services, what's the target market, what are the expectations of these clients, what channels are we selling through, what are those channel costs. You got to take all that into consideration, and marketing needs to understand it. The revenue guys need to understand it, and if you don't, you aren't going to optimize. You're going to lose money.
Yeah.
What do
It
you
has
think
to
should
be.
be the leading
You're going to make
way?
bad decisions. Yeah.
So I don't know if you
Who
guys
leads
have
that
listened-
conversation? Okay.
So we did
Okay.
it. Shameless plug. We did an episode of the podcast last week. We had Marco from Duetto, and we don't often have guests on the show, but we
Yeah,
wanted
actually
to have
about that.
this exact conversation, right? Which is where does it all fit in this landscape? We're experts in marketing. We're not experts in revenue management, but we work with revenue managers. But I figured I'd bring someone in that comes from that side, and we had the discussion. And I asked him the question flat out: how do you see the ideal org chart in a group or a hotel that? How should this fall? Does marketing fall under revenue management? Does revenue management fall under marketing? And he said something which I agree with a lot, which is it should start with strategy. You should have someone in
Absolutely.
charge of strategy, which everything else trickles out underneath, So, and he calls it revenue strategy, not revenue management, which I agree with. But,
Yeah.
we talked a lot about the fact that there's no other industry where this is a problem. Like if you look at retail, like price is marketing, marketing is
Right.
price. This nonsense that hospitality has gone in
Yep.
this direction, sexy sales and marketing and then like number crunching revenue management that don't communicate doesn't exist anywhere else. So
Right.
you'll listen to that episode. I think it was episode 88 of the Fuel Hotel Marketing Podcast. And it was a good conversation. Like I said, we don't have that kind of episode very often, but I felt like it was an important topic that needed to be discussed.
Absolutely. Well, and I even take it one step earlier is what are the objectives of the hotel? Why was it developed? What are the owner's interests and needs? The management company, the brand, you have to figure all that stuff out and if you can figure that stuff out of where there's commonality, identify where the conflicts are and sort that out just in terms of the pure objectives of the property, then you can start working on the strategies. Build on those business objectives, and that's how you have to do it. That is business.
That brings me back to a question. And I've had as well. Does this mean that this finally will bring this back under the steward of general managers? Because ultimately they are supposed to be the apex of the prioritization of the property, that they are to be the facilitators of the vision as well as the implementers of the success. And because face it, I mean, revenue management has been culled out of what was once reservations, and is the sweetheart of the ownership, that they walk past the GM's office now to go to revenue management office and talk to them. They don't talk to the GM about it.
It was a rooms division function, right? Exactly.
Yeah, right. And so now, does that mean that because everybody has to play nice again, that there needs to be a stewardship of okay, there's a strategy component to this conversation, which means revenue is assigned to their tasks of what they need to do in collaboration with the assigned tasks to marketing, and that they have to answer up, or the two children have to fight and see who's the big brother and who's the little brother?
It's all going to work together. And if you're a full service hotel with food and beverage and recreation or resort or something like that, you've got to take all of that into consideration, because you're playing share of wallet and how much are you capturing on this, let alone getting into lifetime value, lifetime customer value. I mean, that's the ultimate one, and the hotel industry is again woefully behind in that area. I mean, that's
and then it goes back to what telling you that I'm speaking of the AHOA thing. We have a perfect storm in some things, I think, because a lot of the legacy old guard that was resistant to digital marketing, the GMs that said, head in the sand, that's not my thing, and we have basically been replaced by people that are like, no, it's the only thing, or it's the thing, or whatever. But they lack they lack stripes, they lack history, they lack depth of management, and they've been put into some positions and roles that don't have a depth of management or leadership style. And so that's one aspect. And then you have on the other side of things where, okay, now you have limited service properties, or large amount of limited service, that the GM is the apex of all things. There is no designation between marketing to operations. It's one entity, one person. So you have that wonderful positive that they can make changes very, very quickly on that side. I mean, it's kind of like, where does all that land? Do we have to go through another iteration of either training the people that have the roles that they have, or they have to be purged for replacements of the next generation of evolution? I mean, it's kind of hard to see where that next new leadership comes from. It
is developing that leadership, though, because the industry's always had that problem where way back it used to be the food and beverage. Was it going to be a rooms guy or a food and beverage guy who was going to become the GM, right? And sales and marketing was just not really. That's just stay over in your office, because you have no idea how to operate these things. So don't even try.
You'd give away the farm if you were in charge. Yes, you'd give away the farm if you were in charge.
Exactly. So now they have to be very good, multidisciplinary folks. I mean, they set the tone for they need to know what drives the business, what satisfies their customers, how their operating costs are controlled, their acquisition cost, all that stuff, how they retain their customers. That is the fundamental business. And they used to focus on it through, hey, we need to do some better jobs with room amenities, or making housekeeping more efficient, or doing stuff from an FF&E perspective, right? That'd be better. And then it's, yes, what are we doing in food and beverage to either change themes of restaurants, or update menus, or change chefs, or reconfigure kitchens, whatever it may be. And it's all part of that, right? I mean, it's then how do you sell that and communicate it? And you really need a good jack of all trades, but they've got to be a leader who can then get the people from those various divisions working together toward those common goals. I mean, that's the bottom line. How do you marshal your staff? How do you identify good staff and then marshal those resources?
Well, you gotta look for certain characteristics when you're hiring now that you didn't necessarily, because we used to live and work in an industry that was relatively stable. And if you were really good at your little piece of that, you could have a good career for 20, 30 years. But now we know that technology is changing at an accelerated rate. Consumer behavior is changing. Expectations are changing. The skills we need are changing. So you've got to look for people that are adaptable and scrappy and willing to learn new things. That's when we hire at Fuel now, that's all we look for. Our hiring process has nothing to do with your experience. Because if you come to me and don't know how to do something, I can teach you how to do it. I just want to know that you're willing to learn and capable of learning. Yeah. So before you even get a phone interview with us now, we'll throw some pretty hard questions. One of them is related to blockchain. And we know that 90% of the people that apply, these are entry-level positions, we know that they don't know what blockchain is. But I want to know that they can go and figure out what blockchain is with a few Google searches and YouTube videos. And if they show that attitude, then I'm going to be able to hire them.
While they're on the initial call?
Before they're on the initial call.
So you're giving a couple little questions about things.
Before we even talk to someone, because we get a lot of applications in our application process. First is complicated. You have to follow a step-by-step process, which includes, by the way, tweeting at us a picture of Steve Harvey. So if people don't follow the step-by-step process, we know they can't follow direction. And then once they get to
that's the rock and roll no green M&Ms.
That's exactly right. Once we know they can follow directions, then we make sure they have the aptitude to learn.
And I have personally picked out green M&Ms for bands. Yeah, it's not fun, but again, they know that you read the rider of that contract, because by God, if you didn't read about the green M&Ms, then maybe you overlooked the weight of the lighting rig, of how that has to be, that your roof has to be strong enough to hold this thing up.
It's interesting is that you both make the same great point, because I've stopped telling people when I do the boilerplate introduction at a conference or something, I came up through food and beverage. Nobody knows about the conflict between Army and Navy. Nobody knows the difference between rooms corridor of growth versus food and beverage corridor. Like you were pointing out earlier, Robert, are there's going to be an F&B guy, there's going to be a room guy, there's going to be the new GM. Those verticals don't exist in their singularity anymore. Somebody was equally in food and beverage, may have migrated to rooms, may have moved over to sales, may have moved into finance, may have moved into revenue. And that's exactly that eclectic mix of understanding and evaluation that you're wanting for a particular role. That hodgepodge combination is the new thing to be found. Like you're pointing out with how you go through the exercise process of bringing on somebody new, giving them what seems to be an obvious, is irrelevant but completely relevant as to the solvability as interview process. Mine was always being in physical presence of them and seeing how they react to truth versus not truth statements, and whether they culturally fit the process. Can they be adaptive to their process? And then, when you hire people, treat them as the most important person, because for that first day, they are the most important person. They don't need to come in and be, tossed off to the side. Oh, I think, you sit somewhere over there. Check with somebody. There's an empty cubicle back there, and you treat them like they're gold, because they are. You found that one nugget of positive person that you bring into your team. So very well done in that sense that you guys are going through that process.
Yeah. The other thing we do, and this is the last one I'll say, because there's a lot of different steps, but we also, in the initial instructions, we say if you're lucky enough to get a face-to-face interview, then we love baked goods, and you should bring some baked goods. And I'd say about 50% of candidates that interview with us now bring us like cookies or cupcakes or something like that. So it's awesome. I don't know if legally you're allowed to do that. You might not be.
And you don't give them the job, and you just have this great.
So even if there's a complete bust, we got something out of. So if I have to sit there for 30 minutes
in the morning, you organize interviews in the morning, and you can you can schedule like, oh, well, wait, somebody's bringing a salad. We've got an entree, dessert. This is perfect. Very clever, Stuart. Very clever.
Yeah, but you know what? But just in all honesty, that's what you did as salespeople anyway. You'd research the person you're going to go talk to, find what their favorite interests are, what their favorite project things, what they're engaged with, and you show up and not empty-handed. The reality of it is you're selling yourself. So if the person says, "I like something," well, dang it, here you go. Because I want your attention. I want you to listen to me about me, and me to talk about myself, so that you want me to work with you. I mean, that's what you do. So it's all just smart. I don't think it's abusive in any sense. It's a matter of how you create the communication. Now, if you told them about expensive things you want, like I need a new car, then I don't know. But anyway,
No, Lauren, that's what you do. You tell them, here's your opportunity to list your demands. Yeah, that's really a good. That's what you want to hear, right, Stuart?
That's exactly right.
I don't expect to be working after noon on Fridays.
Right.
And
what are you entitled to, millennial?
Mondays are tough. I really, anything before noon just doesn't work for me.
Well, depending upon the position, I always would. And I wanted to see whether they would ask what I did, and then I would also ask them if they want my job, because I always wanted somebody that, based on the position, not every position, of course, but on certain positions, I wanted people to want my job because I didn't want to keep my job. I wanted somebody to take my job. And so, because the only way I can move up is by making sure that whatever fills what I'm doing is better than what I was doing it as. And it was kind of an interesting, for certain roles, that's what you wanted around. Others, they had no aspirations, but they were very good at what they did anyway. So, hey, do you want to do the rut row?
Sure, we can do that. Now, I didn't pick, there was one rut row, which was a really simple one where there was a guy, a valet parker in Australia, who was parking a Porsche Carrera and had a little problem and put it underneath not only put it underneath an SUV, but ran that into another car. And he had to be cut out of the car, which was really not a good situation.
I feel like he may have been going at excessive speeds, maybe.
Well, no, he was dead stopped right behind it, and he must have. Maybe he thought he was putting his foot on the brake to put it in gear. I have no idea.
I think he did a Ferris Bueller.
Hadn't ever driven a stick shift before. Could have been.
Probably shouldn't be a valet parker if you haven't driven a stick shift.
I was about to say, if you don't know how to drive a few varieties of cars, you should be a valet parker. So what was the rut row you had was?
The rut row was Google Assistant fired a gun. We need to talk. So somebody worked up a little rig where you could basically say, I can't say it here because my Google Home may do it. I don't know. But yeah, basically said, hey, Siri, fire the gun, or the equivalent in Google. And it did. So that's I'm
so jaded on this kind of article, though. I feel like the mainstream media is trying to create something that doesn't exist. Right?
Well, this was Engadget, so it wasn't quite mainstream media.
But it's going to get picked up. It's like you saw last week that Amazon issue where it recorded someone's conversation, but when you dig into it actually followed the protocol that it is programmed to follow. The people were just either dumb or not paying attention. So, I think there's some fear mongering going on about AI in general. But with the reality of this particular article is, other than the fact the device itself has AI capabilities, that wasn't AI firing the gun. It was a device that was instructed
it was a skill to
turn on a device that did it. So.
Well, I do. I equate this similar to what remember the article that was autonomous cars are trained to kill, and that was the headline, and it was about the fact that if you had a no-win scenario of multiple people versus a single person, that the autonomous car was to choose the lesser loss, and so that headline totally did, and to this end too. So this was a willful attempt to show that this is like cell phones kill people because they're used for EIDs. You hit a button and it triggers a bomb. No, it's not. It was a contrived use of something to facilitate a headline, or end up being a headline. Yeah. But yes, it is interesting though that in the voice command functionality growth, that it will become more and more like this. That there are things that, like for I'm buying a camera for my boat. Anyway, that I can watch it from a distance when I'm not there for security, and I can actually control that from Google. It's a part of my home system where I can turn the light on or watch the camera or something like that. And it's just a usage function. It's a part of the process of what these things can be used for.
Right, but this had nothing to do with the fact it was a voice device, right? You could easily have done the exact same thing with command line, So they're making it to be our AI is evil, but
if this then
the component here. Yeah, it's just a simple conditional input.
No, I thought the reason I put it as a rut row was really just because it's an interesting little topic.
Right. No, it is a worthy rut row. It was just
I think the one thing is going to then be kind of the liability side of what, this is the guns don't kill, people kill people type thing, right? Which is kind of true. But then all of a sudden you can start doing some very interesting things between voice controller AI or how these algorithmic triggers for particular events go do things, and then you start tying it into drones and God knows what, and it's all these unintended consequences of the advance of technology, right? Which is, I do kind of believe Facebook, to a certain extent, they should have been more aware, but I think a lot of these guys, when they're developing that platform, were completely sold on, this is a beautiful thing. We're connecting the world and we're allowing people to communicate, and this is great. And hey, we figured out a way to make money from it, and we're changing the world. And I don't know, they were really certainly not as focused. They should have been like going, hey, could people use this for things that
they were very cavalier, especially in the early days when we first started developing apps for Facebook. You got all the data. It was
absolutely.
Really, they gradually shut it down, but they definitely didn't take the time to discern what are the risks here, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is part of the, that was Zuckerberg's whole thing, was like to break things, right? That was the culture. Just go full steam, kind of the Uber approach, just like, damn the torpedoes. We're going to go break stuff and see what happens. And we are really going to be disruptive. But you have these other situations that can,
I just hope that it doesn't, how, government is in this country with regulation. I just hope this fear mongering doesn't get into the zeitgeist to a point where they start putting in legislation that limits innovation in AI in this country, because that innovation is not going to be stifled in other countries, and the US is going to get left behind unless it goes full force on AI.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and Meeker's report had a big point of that, basically looking at the structural issues where you have these organizations which are disrupting existing industries. They are making high margins, they have high growth rates and everything like that, and all of a sudden you have this recipe for regulation. That's what triggers the you've got a bunch of people who are getting hurt by the disruption going, wait a second, hey, what happened to our little niche in the world?
Yeah, Google's on is going to be a reality before too long. That one of the things she said in her report too was that was it the top 20 technology companies in the world? If you looked at, was it a couple of years ago? I think 9 or 7 were U.S. and 2 were Chinese, and now 11 are U.S. and 9 are Chinese.
Yeah, they've completely shut out
everyone else.
Shut out the EU, South America, everywhere else. India, nobody else is on the list, just the US and China. And China is growing.
China, I wouldn't be surprised if it had more than half in the next report.
Yeah,
right.
I agree with that.
Well, and again, I can't recommend that Meeker report enough. There's so many issues. She goes into things on the economics of the U.S. and what's happening with debt, and not just the U.S. but other countries of these debt levels of how does this. It's not just here's the technology and the internet. It's really here's the culture and the population and all this impact of technology on humanity. But I'm also posting the link to the wrecked Porsche, so you can see it.
Well, for people like Robert, the Meeker report is kind of like Christmas in the middle of the year.
Oh, it is a great thing. It is a great report.
We're at the 2-hour mark, and
I've got to run.
Yeah, just but by the same token, I love the conversation for it. It's kind of fun. You missed it earlier on. Donna from Penn State I think we mentioned her before, wanting to feature the show towards her students. Yeah. And she was trying to craft what it is that we do and so forth. So she asked, so what was the inspiration of the show, so forth and so on. And I sent back a fun manifesto of it. It's like sitting around with friends about stuff you're passionate about, drinking coffee, with the honesty of the conversation being the most important part. So
there you go. Coffee.
Yeah. Well, I have coffee. Beer, you have beer, coffee. Beer soon.
And that's why I wanted to be so outspoken and naming names on this show, so Donna could see that we are not beholden to.
Anybody.
That's what really pulled me in initially was the fact that this isn't just a bunch of yes men or women agreeing with the industry. It's real debate about what's going on and not pulling punches. It's really good.
Yeah.
I feel like it's needed in this industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, so too is your podcast, which if people want to hear your podcast, which is absolutely, I consider the best in the business right now. Where can they go?
So fueltravel.com/podcast or iTunes, Google Play, wherever. Just search Fuel Hotel Podcast and you'll find it anywhere. And like I said, we just did the episode on with Marco from Duetto. It was really good. I enjoyed the conversation a lot.
I'll catch up with you later. I would love to ask some other questions about it. But the one thing I have to say is that I sincerely appreciate you all's consistency with it, because there have been other podcasts, myself included, where I've had podcasts of 200 editions, and now I just can't keep up with them. Consistency and persistent good content you've maintained. There have been other podcasts. I mean, Tim's is a phenomenal podcast. He has his moments of gaps, but he has phenomenal content. So the fact that it is as good as it is, and it's as consistent as it is, I sincerely appreciate it, because gosh knows there's a lot of work.
It's not easy, but it's it's a lot of work from a lot of people other than myself, and we work hard.
All those poor fuel clients, they go, we really need something. I'm sorry, we've got a podcast to do.
Podcast, excuse me.
Your marketing can just wait.
I'll be honest, sometimes the podcast is a response to a client's request. They're like, we really want to know more about this. And we're like, we'll do it.
We don't know about that. Let's
provide it to them.
Let's discuss this Friday afternoon and work out something we can send to a Monday morning.
That's exactly what happened with the GDPR episode. We had, we were like, we need to have stuff together. Let's put it together.
Meanwhile, your other co-ownerships are like, you gave what away for free? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Funny.
Mr. Robert, if people want to know more about you and Rock Cheetah, where is it that they can go to, sir?
Well, you can try going to timpeter.com, but I don't know if he has the /Robert K. Cole anymore. But no, either at
he's
Rock
MIA
Cheetah,
and PAH.
Yeah, that's right. Now, rockcheetah.com or Robert K. Cole on social media.
Oh, can I also say, Lauren, that we're going to be at High Tech? So if anyone wants to come and say hey,
yes,
at High Tech,
yes.
Fuel Travel's going to have a booth there. I've got you down for a ticket, Lauren, as consultant. So.
Oh, really?
Hey.
Oh, thank you for my ticket.
Hey, he blatantly asked me if I could get him one. So
I did. I was on the back.
Asked me, I'll say yes too.
I was like, hey, dude, can I, take a free ride to come and hit the floor? But yeah, we're going to be and hopefully I haven't heard back from Julian HSMA for Rock yet. I'm hoping that Robert can join me in Rock to get in there, because I want to go in there. And then we have the ALHOA conference right afterwards on Friday that I'm speaking at, which should be interesting because, they're good. Okay, so here's a fun thing, real quick. I'm hosting a Shark Tank. What we're doing is we're taking 160 people have signed up so far. To this portion.
What day is this? Oh, is this
Friday.
at High Tech?
Oh man,
Thursday. Yeah, Friday. And doing Shark Tank, where they're giving there's 4 panelists that are the sharks, and I'm moderating, and they're having to go through a whole process of 2 tables of 10 each have to bid on the same concept. And there's different concepts they have to pick on between revenue management, marketing, whatever. And they have to, in the hour and a half that this whole project's being given, acid bath it down to what they're proposing to do, present it to the sharks as a viable product and concept, and whether or not it would actually be bought. And it's going to be kind of fun. I got some pretty cool things I'm throwing into the works on it. So it's going to be interesting. And if it works well, I'm going to be pitching it to you, Robert.
I wanted to be a shark.
You'll always be a shark to me, Robert.
That's you're always the shark. Anyway,
I'm just a guppy in Lauren's world.
All right, for anybody that wants to play back this show.
One thing, actually, Stuart, you said you were leaving Thursday. I'm actually, and I should have given you guys a heads up because we probably could have gotten a group, but I had to act fast because there weren't many tickets. That evening of the 21st, there is a comedy show with Dave Chappelle and Jon Stewart doing a.
Oh, really?
Doing a thing. Yeah.
I have to change my flight.
Yeah, I wound up and grabbed like a single seat in the balcony for it. But that's But anyway, they're doing like 2 or 3 days in Boston. For some reason, 2 days in Houston and 1 in El Paso. And it's like, I don't know what tour this is.
Yeah, that's kind of sporadic. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to watch the England soccer game, I think we're playing Tunisia on the Monday. I've got to find a good English pub
Soccer.
near.
I'm not familiar
the
with
hotel.
soccer. Though I hear there's a
Football,
good
sorry.
English football game. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyone have any good suggestions of where to watch England Tunisia on the Monday? I'd greatly appreciate it. Somewhere near the High Tech Hotel, wherever we're staying.
Yeah.
Yeah, downtown Houston. Yeah, I know some places 30 miles north that will definitely have it. But yeah, I don't know. There must
I'll
be.
dig around and see what
I'm
it is,
sure.
but
I'll
it should be
probably Google
fun.
it, but-
It would be fun with all of us there. I'm going to try to do, of course, live coverage on Rock. Hopefully, Friday I might have some interesting issues I might need help with on trying to get the show hosted. If I'm speaking at the same time, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I don't know what that timetable works out yet. So I got to figure out a safety net for it. But in the meanwhile, for anybody who wants to know this show, watch this show back in its entirety with show notes and links of things that we talked about and didn't talk about that Rob was generous enough in putting together as topics for the week. You can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/147, which is episode 147 for this. And if you want to play back any of the other 146 episodes, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live, and the links to the archives and the previous shows are there as well. With that in mind,
And
gentlemen,
do
thank
they
you.
autoplay once you finish one, so you can listen to them continuously?
No. Oh, actually, yes. I have a channel on YouTube that is, at this point, I think we have almost 3 weeks of continuous 24-hour nonstop shows that you could listen to us in our entirety from inception to creation, everything that we've ever talked about for the past 3 years. And it's well worth the listen.
Excellent.
It's well worth the listen.
I
Binge
think-
watching has never had such a happiness.
Yeah, if you want to get caught up on our topics,
Yeah, for real. We should
Actually-
start charging subscription for that. It'd be like
Yes.
competing with Netflix.
yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it would be binge watching, but I'm
gonna binge
actually
watch
I think-
season 1. I'll be back in a week.
I'll be back in a week. But with that in mind, we are considering the fact, since Robert has done, and we have historically always done, topics for each week, of doing a end of the month recap newsletter out of all the link stuff. Like, hey, this is everything we talked about this past month.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, because the content, I mean, Robbie, kudos, really, honestly, the content you pull, the topics and so forth, relevant, useful, and everything. So why not share it again in the second iteration of like, hey, this is all the stuff we hit this month. You know, if you want to acid bath down all the dialogue, here it is, and here's the links. So
yeah, that's really good. It's this guy Scott Monty does one like that's like not hotel specific, it's just marketing specific. I'll send you the example because I think it would be a good format to
that'd
borrow.
be good. That'd be neat.
Yeah, he calls it the
certainly.
full Monty. You can
It's
take from that what you want.
Uh-huh.
Hey, that's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. With
Great.
that, everyone, thank you for joining us for show number 147. Next week will be show number 148. And we look forward to seeing everyone next Friday, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, for This Week in Hospital Digital Marketing. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.